As we kick off the post-Labor Day election season, Donald Trump has reportedly spent $600,000 on TV ads in Denver, Grand Junction, and Colorado Springs. Meanwhile, CD6 Democratic candidate Morgan Carroll debuted her TV ads this week in what will likely be the most competitive race in Colorado. Patty, what do you think? Post-Labor Day, is this when people start paying attention, or it's 2016, you're late to the party?
Well, it is like watching the world's slowest train wreck. And all we know is that in the end, we're the ones who are going to get squished, no matter who's running the engine. I can tell by your body language that what you really want me to talk about is that commander-in-chief debate. But what's so fascinating is watching Trump in action, watching Hillary Clinton in action, realizing that the polls are changing daily. You know, we had said that, oh, it's safe, Colorado's safe for Clinton, which dismayed mostly major media outlets that would get the ads. Now Trump is coming up because his polling keeps shifting. So I think we are going to be, for the next 8 weeks, watch things come and go, positions change, ads come, crazy lies being told by the candidates. It is the greatest but most depressing show in town. As for the 6th, of course it's the most competitive Colorado race, because what's the other one? Bennett versus Glenn?
Right. It's, I guess when you don't have anything else to compete with, you are naturally the #1 race.
Competing with themselves in most of these cases.
That's a very good point. Mike, speaking of the Kaufman-Carroll race, we saw I'm not sure if it was a couple ads. At least the most memorable ad from Kaufman we saw was basically saying, "I'm against Trump," and now we're finally seeing Carroll get into the game. Do you anticipate a major media battle between the two?
This is such a tight race, and how Trump being on the top of the ticket starts to trickle on down to what should have been a fairly, I mean, in another year, in another time, in another era that wasn't like a 1,000-year event. This should have been a fairly, Mike Kaufman should have had a much easier time of this. I found Morgan Carroll's ad really interesting because it was almost like, it was a pretty standard Democratic running for Congress. I like to do things for people. I like to create jobs. I like small business. It was almost like she was introducing herself, and she's a known entity over there. I mean, she's been in the legislature for a long time. Here's what I found really interesting is that, and whether or not the Kaufman team can certainly make hay out of this, and whether or not Morgan Carroll will try and continue on this way, you know, it had the little blip that said supports small business, and underneath, what you don't see is the little teeny tiny reference, which in this ad was Senate Bill 14166, which was actually just a bill that allowed the Office of Economic Development to develop an app for people to find businesses, which there are dozens of in the private sector, and which people are creating every day. So if that's the extent of Morgan Carroll supporting small business, then she might want to stay away from that. What you did not see referenced in there was something like HB 1136 from 2013, which Morgan Carroll was a Senate prime co-sponsor on, which basically brought small businesses under 15 employees under the same really egregious umbrella of liability in personal injury lawsuits, and basically said it was a boon to personal injury lawyers, which Morgan Carroll is one, and said that employers, if they win in court, can't collect legal fees. Employees, if they win in court, can. So she really basically just threw small business under the bus just 2 years ago. So I think she needs to be very careful about talking about her small business bona fides, because Kaufman has a target-rich environment there.
Eric, when you look at the timing of these ads, both the Trump ads coming to Colorado and Morgan Carroll ads, what do you think about the timing of being post-Labor Day? Some folks think, hey, that's when folks pay attention. Or the momentum building of a July and August, especially in the 2016 environment?
I think you have to distinguish between the two races. The presidential race has been going on forever. Can we ever remember a time when Donald Trump wasn't front and center in the news? And so I think, yes, this is late. And the old rule of thumb that presidential elections start on Labor Day, that hasn't been applicable for some time, and it certainly is not applicable in this year. There are still undecided voters out there, but it is a small universe. It's the universe that both campaigns are targeted on, but it's a small universe. The congressional race, that's a different deal. I think, you know, you do have late deciders in that race. That's not a top-of-the-mind race. It's not a top of the front page of the newspaper every day kind of race. So for Morgan Carroll to begin her advertising now, I don't think that's necessarily too late. probably is harboring her money, and now both candidates will be consistently on the air. I found her ad to be, it was fine. I thought it was, as Mike sort of pointed out, Democratic boilerplate. It wasn't the most imaginative ad I've ever seen. She looked stiff, but she hit all of her targeted message points. To the presidential race, I mean, Patty hit this, but it's just the wildest thing we've ever seen. I can't make sense of the map because you keep reading all these national stories, and I think they're accurate about the race now tightening. I mean, Trump had a miserable month following both conventions and did everything possible to disqualify himself, everything that he hadn't previously done to disqualify himself. But the polls are now, for the last few weeks, tightening to margin of error kind of numbers. But yet you look at the map and you see reliably red states like Missouri or Georgia or Arizona that are in play, if not, Hillary within a point or two up. And it's hard to reconcile those two facts. Colorado, to my mind, is not in play. This is not a purple state in the presidential race, certainly not a purple state in the U.S. Senate race either. So I do not understand why Donald Trump is spending money here. But I don't understand why Donald Trump was in either Mississippi a couple weeks ago, which is as red a state as you're ever going to find, or Washington State, which is blue a state as you're ever going to find. So nothing about his campaign makes sense.
Yeah, trying to understand is probably the first problem there. Greg, Colorado's used to being a swing state. We're used to a lot of attention in the last few presidential cycles. We're not getting a lot of money invested with presidential ads this year, even though we're seeing a few from Trump. It's not like it used to be. And we're not seeing a major Senate race. Do you think Colorado's going to feel a little left out of being swing state status this year?
I think we're going to enjoy being ignored. I think we're going to enjoy the break. The other thing that's odd about Donald Trump is why is he spending time in Cleveland, Ohio? That's my hometown. I haven't seen a Republican there in probably 25 years, so I have no idea what he's doing. But the one thing I'll say about the CD race is I think we could all benefit from having more congressional districts constructed the way the CD6 is, where the incumbents and the challengers really do have to pay attention to the constituents. Like, it's pretty impressive, no matter what you think of Kaufman, that he learned Spanish so he can communicate with his constituents. As far as Carroll's commercial, I think, it makes some sense for her to introduce herself to those living in that district. Colorado has a reputation for being reluctant to throw out incumbents. So I think she has to make the case for who she is, what she's done. And anytime you have your mother in an ad, I think that's a plus.
Definitely a standby.